The views and opinions expressed by the guests, callers, and hosts on this and all Rense Radio Network programs do not necessarily reflect or agree with those of the network, its commercial sponsors, its radio station affiliates, or Internet broadcast platforms. In these controversial times, we believe the First Amendment and freedom of the press are absolutely essential to the survival of our nation. Thank you. And now, enjoy the program.
Okay, what I thought we'd do is say hello to our guest. And since we're both Italiano, we might do a little first of the year program special, little musical tribute to. Hello, Mr. C. How are you?
Hey, come sta? Great.
Hey, good. All right, here we go. Just a little bit. And if I'm sure you, Gerald, and many of you listening used to watch the Three Tenors when they were at it, and they would kind of have a dueling O Sole Mio between them. It was kind of fun. Here's a little bit of O Sole Mio. If you remember those three, they were wonderful. This is a little hello to all of you from us. And again, good evening to one and all out there, wherever you are around the world, in Italy, India, in Iraq, who knows? We have people all over the place. Now, how many times did you hear that as a youngster around the house, Gerald?
I used to walk into my grandfather's house in the Bronx, may his soul rest in peace, and it was always opera playing all the time. Yeah,
there's nothing like growing up in a musical household, and I often think about our young people. What they grow up with now, of course, is not music at all. It's horror. It's noise. And,
well, it's not only the music. They have no point of reference to anything.
Zero.
Because if you go into, there used to be these things called pharmacies, and now there's Walmart and CVS. And you walk into a Walmart, and it's like walking in a Walgreens, and CVS. And you walk into a Walmart, it's like walking into a big self-storage unit. So they have no point of reference to anything. They have no point of reference to dress. They have no point of reference to style. They have no point of reference to dignity. All you had to do is look upon the big news making the news and watching this clown Christie from New Jersey.
Oh, he's unbelievable.
Lack of dignity.
Unbelievable.
But no more unbelievable than our commander-in-chief Obama playing golf. No more unbelievable than Pelosi saying, what was that word about, how did she put it, suck? Embrace the suck.
Excuse me?
Embrace the suck. If anybody could Google it up, put Pelosi embrace the suck. About, sucking up and taking it in that this is what the government is doing, so
suck it up.
And you listen to the video, you watch her, and you see that she's a total sociopath. She's out of her mind. And so the young people have absolutely no point of reference from music to food to culture to anything. And the worst part about it is that they were grown up at a time when their parents inflated them with these false egos that they're special and amazing.
You hit on a number of things that I've been on for years as well. Dignity, integrity, grace, kindness, consideration.
How about morality?
Well, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Morality underlies it all, really. Responsibility, accountability, the idea that there are other humans next to us who have feelings. This younger generation, and there are exceptions. There are some wonderful people.
Oh yeah, there's some great kids. Oh yeah.
Some of them are listening right now, but they know what we're talking about. They live in it. They know, and you're right. And I don't have an easy answer for it. I'm not sure there is an answer for it, because once a child grows up without that spiritual understanding of life and what it could be, how do you teach them that? It's not easy.
Well, again, that's what a Renaissance is about. Alla Romana e all'antica, in the manner of the Romans and the ancients.
Yeah.
That's what they said during the Renaissance to describe the quality of their work. Look, I have a bunch of young fellows working with us, and they're totally dedicated, and they tell me all the time. They say that their friends are all hip to what's going on, and that the people that are in denial of my generation, I'm from the first, wave of baby boomers, and they became the biggest sellouts and hypocrites walking the planet. I remember when I was in college, there was this song. What was his name? I forgot the name of the guy. Cat in the Cradle.
Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah. And
Cat's Cradle?
Yeah, Cat in the Cradle. And it was not Kurt Vonnegut. Anyway, it was a song about, the kid grows up, his father's never at the...
Oh, okay. I can't remember either.
Never at the baseball game, and on and on.
Yeah.
And they were so anti-consumer. These are the people that invented McMansions. They have been totally got lockjaw when it came to the Iraq and Afghan atrocities that continue. So these young guys are telling me that my generation are the big hypocrites, and these young people know the score. But what the young people don't know is they don't know what style, grace, dignity. They don't know from Billie Holiday or Anita O'Day or Count Basie or Duke Ellington or Jimmy Rushing or Jimmy Lunsford. They have absolutely no idea of what music used to be, from Gene Krupa to Cab Calloway. You go down the list,
those people
up and down.
You know what the word is? They had class.
They had class, and they had talent.
Well, that too.
You got a guy like, Louis Armstrong, and the diplomat. They used to call him the world diplomat. Mm-hmm. One great line, by the way, he's playing in front of the Queen of England, just to put things in perspective. And he turns around and he goes to her, "Hey, this one's for you, Queenie."
Did he really?
Oh, yeah.
Louis could get it. He's the only man on the planet could get away with that.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
And really, get off this royal trip,
Yeah.
And that's like calling, I love everybody, the Prince of Saudi Arabia. What prince? It's a dictatorship. Grow up. And anyway, but you had all these people like Jack Teagarden. They could sing, and they could. The guy was one of the great trombonists of all times.
Yeah.
And we don't have. We got this Miley Cyrus, Myris, whatever her name is, and this other one low life after another.
What we have, really, unfortunately, are tattooed whores as role models for too many of our young people. That's all these people are, and many of them have admitted that they have, quote, sold their souls to the devil for their success. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I wonder why they're saying it if it isn't. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least if it was. Something's going on. These are, talk about empty vessels. And you mentioned the names. Glenn Miller, the Dorsey brothers. You could go on and on and on.
On and on. Yeah, Benny Goodman, Artie Shaw.
There you go.
And one after another. Frank Sinatra, you go down, up and down the list, one better than the other, and then even going into the generation before me, when you had great guys like Al Sears, one after Tiny Grimes, Big Joe Turner, beginning of rock and roll, rock and roll, little girls and boys did not begin with the Beatles or the Stones. They were doing bad renditions of American jazz and American rockers in the early days. I want to hold your hand. I want to hold your hand. Yeah, I hated it. I was listening to Dave Brubeck, Ramsey Lewis. I'm listening to this stuff. What is this garbage? Actually, the British invasion killed American rock and roll. And then the morons started smashing their guitars on the stage. It became a whole freak show, and guess what? It still is. It's a bigger freak show than ever before.
How low can they go? And you said something very important. It came from England. What else is in England? Tavistock. Tavistock does what? Tavistock engineers societies and people. It learned from Edwin L. Bernays. Tavistock Institute, of course, sets the entire social trends for cultures, for epochs, and eras in our existence. They come and they go. And there is a lot to be said about the rock and roll of the 60s and 70s being controlled and influenced by social planners and social engineering. So, can't prove it, but it certainly adds up to me. And then we look today, what do we have? Miley Cyrus. You can start and stop right there. And if you find something that is more base or vile than that, don't let me know, folks. I don't want to see it. That's about as low as it gets. Hold on, we'll be right back with the Master of Trends, Gerald Celente, in just a couple of minutes. Okay, welcome back. When I was in college, Gerald, and the Beatles were running rampant, I was listening to Sibelius, Shostakovich, Tchaikovsky, Mahler, and people thought I was a freak. Seriously. They didn't know what the hell that was.
No, I know. I wasn't listening to that, but I was into, Duke Ellington and Count Basie.
Well, it had substance. It all had depth.
Dave Brubeck, all of that, And of course, I was alone in my own little world on it. But, as we're looking again, as I mentioned about what's going on now with this Chris Christie thing, everybody's making a big deal of it. And, of course, he's just the same old kind of arrogant sociopath like the rest of them. He's no different. I'm not a bully, he said. Yeah, I know, you're an arrogant, self-serving sociopath that's never done anything other than promote himself.
Can't wait to announce his candidacy for the White House.
Yeah, exactly. Just like all of the rest of them. But when you put it all in context, what makes him different than the Bushes, the Clintons, the Obamas, and the Boners, and the Reeds, and the Pelosi's? It's more of the same. And what the tragedy is to me is that, this guy's a screw-up, but look what's going on now in Iraq. And all of this hand-wringing and sociopaths like John Insane McCain and little boy chicken hawk Lindsey Graham saying that we have to bring the troops back and Obama shouldn't have pulled them out. And then the United States sending Biden over there to talk to or having him call the president of Iraq, and Kerry making Ketchup King Kerry, he married the Heinz Fortune lady, talking about how we're going to send arms to Iraq.
But no troops, just arms.
Troops, not arms. So it's great for the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about...
Can you hear that static, Gerald?
Yeah, I got the static, yeah.
All right, let's see what happens here. Give it a few seconds. It's too loud.
Start it now.
Go ahead and hang up. Wait, are you still there?
I got it cleared up now.
Okay, good.
All right, so then you have... why isn't the media, rather than talking about Christie, talking about the war crimes committed by Bush.
Well, because it's not the media.
By Powell. By Rumsfeld.
You could go on for an hour.
Cheney. Blair. How come there are no Nuremberg... Bush, yeah. Blair. How come there are no Nuremberg trials? I almost went broke back in the early 2000s. I have in front of me a TrendsJournal from the winter of 2004. It's called, and I did a piece, and I was looking at the hate mail that I got after this. It was called Doing the Iraq Drag, and here's how it began. Washington's promise and the Pentagon's prophecy that this year's Iraqi elections will help establish democracy and facilitate U.S. troop reductions are as inaccurate as claims made last year by Vice President Dick Cheney that the Iraq War is, quote, behind us, and Major General Raymond Oder Erno's prediction that, quote, we have 6 to 12 months left of this insurgency. Rather than unite the country, the upcoming Iraqi elections will create deeper political tribal conflict, harden religious divisions, and push Iraq into more chaos and a bloody civil war. There will be no democracy, no independent government, nor will there be an Iraqi armed force capable of accepting the transfer of United States military power. That's just the beginning of the piece. I mean, for this, people should be saying, wow, you call that? Did I call it? Yeah, I called this. This is just like a year after the war began. And this is a time when all the Americans had them yellow ribbons tied around everything that wasn't moving.
What fools.
And waving all those made in China American flags.
Yeah. Walmart's full of them every July.
And then I wrote on December 2nd, 2000.
That was, by the way, that could not have been more prescient.
No, right on the money.
100%,
right on the money.
Exact. And you got crap for that.
I wrote it in the current TrendsJournal. We almost went out of business. The hate mail that I got.
Wow.
Our subscriptions went down to almost. We were losing. We were losing everything. And I wrote this
for the truth.
Yeah. And you know what turned it around? Is when I made the forecast in 2007 of the Panic of 08, and even took the domain name out. So the moral of the story is that money counted more than morality, because people were losing money and they wanted to know what to do as the whole thing was collapsing. But when I talked about morality, I got blackballed from virtually everybody. On Oprah, the Today Show, Good Morning America. They didn't want to hear this.
No.
Here, this is what I wrote in the same piece. On December 2nd, 2004, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld said, quote, if you were asking, was there any kind of understanding or agreement that there would likely be a long insurgency afterwards, I don't believe that anyone would say that. Now this guy, this little piece of crap, this little piece of garbage, and the media keeps sucking up to these guys, one after Ordinario. This little guy, these little weasels, General, I gotta keep it clean over here. These guys, all they do is get their buttons pressed to work their way up the system. One loser after another. And they get away with it, and the media, the prostitutes, keep sucking up to these guys. So, as we're talking about Christie, these are the people that should be brought up on
charges.
On charges.
And you make a point that's extremely important, and I want you folks to watch this the next time you see a so-called press conference or news conference with any of these jokers. Watch how obsequious the press is, the alleged press, the prostitutes. Watch how they act. There are no hard questions. They lob marshmallows up at these guys, and they stand up there with their microphones. They look down at the press, and they're on such trips. And the media is just useless. They just regurgitate and spit out press releases at 9 out of 10 times. But they're afraid of these people. They're afraid of disfavor. They're afraid of being excluded from their...
Girls.
That's all they are.
They're little kids. These are the same little jerks you knew in high school that ran the school newspaper, and it's like they're talking to the principal. There's not a man or woman among them. There's no courage or dignity. No courage or dignity? Just look at Christie. You want to see an example of no dignity? And I love it all the time when these guys get caught. I apologize. Well, you apologize. You got caught. That's
They're liars. They couldn't care less. It's just talk. It's just words. No, it's just words.
Sociopaths don't care.
They'll say whatever it takes. Just words. Means nothing to them. No, they have no conscience, no guilt, and they know that. In fact, that's how they operate.
Because they're sociopaths.
That's right.
Sociopaths are never guilty for their actions.
No, they go to bed and sleep at night. No problems.
No problems.
Look what we did. Look what we did. So Gerald brought up Iraq. Look what we did to an advanced, really an extraordinary country, Iraq. It's a pile of sewage and rubble now. We literally destroyed an entire nation, a sovereign country, and killed 2, maybe 2.5 million of its residents, including that 9-10 year embargo where they wouldn't let medicine in and the children were dying by the tens of thousands. This is what our country did, folks. Somebody had to allow that. There's an old expression, by our silence we allow. And we were silent. We didn't get up off our asses and go out in the streets and demand. Did nothing. And in the last election 2 years ago, Gerald, we returned 96% of the criminals back to Congress for another term. We'll see what happens this year.
Yep, it was when I was a kid. I remember they used to talk about the elections in the Soviet Union, and those are the kind of numbers that they used to report that the people got reelected.
There you go. Hang on a second. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Yes, a perfect overlay. Same numbers. Back in a minute. Okay, welcome back. Talking to Gerald Celente, and I hope you have your issue of the TrendsJournal. If not, please sign up and get them. They are extraordinary reading, and they last. They're keepers, as they say. I'm looking at some pictures of some of these MRAP vehicles, MRAP, that the Department of Homeland Security is giving to our local police forces. And I'm seeing some of these pictures are amazing. The front of the vehicle, these are armored vehicles, of course, say police on it, and the side says police/rescue, like they're going to rescue in these things. They need these to rescue people. And then there's another picture of 4 or 5 cops coming around the front of them with their, I don't know what they are, M14, they're something, automatic weapons, and they're in full military combat gear. These are cops. And they get off on this. This is the biggest power trip they got. Now, they're coming around this vehicle, and they're aiming their weapons at an alleged or imaginary or a practice template target. And you wonder, who are these people practicing to kill? Who's over here? The Communist Chinese? Al-Qaeda? The Russians? No. They're practicing to kill us. And these vehicles are so ugly. If you ever want to see a symbol of an occupied country, look at these MRAP vehicles. And if your local police force has them, I pity you. I hope you go to your county or city commission and start asking questions. What the hell do we need these for here? And why does it say rescue on the side? It should say death. That's what it's all about. Killing people. They're all trained to kill. So that's our brave new world. We're actually electronically, of course, way past Orwell. Orwell could not have foreseen this. I'm not talking about the MRAP vehicles. I'm talking about the NSA and surveillance and nowhere to hide, and how all the new cars have tracking devices that the automakers can actually track where you drive, when you drive it. your total mileage, and all the rest of it. It is so beyond Orwell now, Gerald. I don't, where can it end? I don't know. I don't see an end for it. 1.6 billion rounds of hollow point ammo for DHS, and some people try to say, oh, it's just for practice. They don't use hollow point ammo for practice, friends, if you don't know. It's a joke. They use hollow point ammo to kill people. 1.6 billion rounds of it.
It's not only people like you and I talking about this. It's the Wall Street Journal. He's even writing about the militarization of the American police force. And it's against... I want to make this really clear for everyone listening. I consider myself a true American. I believe in the Constitution. I don't need some jerk judge interpreting it for me. I'm not stupid. I know how to write and I know how to read, and I've been writing a long time. I don't need some little clown that's a political hack, judge appointed or elected, telling me how to interpret the Bill of Rights. And they've been stolen from us. And so you even have, as I said, the Wall Street Journal. This is certainly not a left-wing magazine.
No. Interesting.
Yeah. Driven by martial rhetoric and the availability of military-style equipment, like you were talking about, from bayonets and M16 rifles to armored personnel carriers, American police forces have often adopted a mindset previously reserved for the battlefield. The war on drugs and more recently post-9/11 anti-terrorism efforts have created a new figure on the U.S. scene, the warrior cop. Yeah, the warrior cop. Hey, listen, pigs, I don't need a warrior cop. Serve and protect, capisce? Warrior cop. Armed to the teeth, ready to deal harshly with targeted wrongdoers. That's who we are, wrongdoers. But you know who the wrongdoers are? They're not Jamie Dimon, not the criminal group from J.P. Morgan Chase that spends billions of dollars in fines for, misrepresenting or mis-selling. Not for John the Slime Corzine, the Goldman Sachs bandit, former governor and senator in New Jersey that robbed my money out of my segregated account. No, you little men in your armored vehicles, you don't go after them. No, you just keep busting our chops. Anyway, the story goes on to go and say, the warrior cop, armed to the teeth, ready to deal harshly with targeted wrongdoers, and a growing threat to familiar American liberties. The Wall Street Journal, July 19th, 2013. It was in the Summer Trends Journal.
Targeted wrongdoers.
What's stopping freedom in America are the police. The police are nothing more than enforcers for the criminal crime bosses. They protect the politicians and the corrupt institutions that are robbing all our money. These cops are on the road. They get you for you don't have your license plate light is out. Your right turn signal didn't go on. Your left high beam isn't on.
Yeah.
And they break our chops continually. These little guys, when they get that badge and that gun in their hands, boy, do they become tough. They are stopping freedom in America. They are as disgusting as the Cambodian police that just shot all these other people that were protesting the slave labor wages by Gap, by Adidas, by the rest of them. They are as disgusting as the bandits in Egypt that beat the people up when they want freedom. What's going on here with these pigs? The pig patrols are out everywhere, and they're stopping freedom. But I have to tell you, where I am in Colonial Kingston, the police don't bother anybody.
Yeah.
They only bother you if you get out of line. You know who breaks our chops? The state troopers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The local police are great around here. It's these guys, particularly the ones that came back from Iraq and Afghanistan.
I was going to mention that.
And they're whacked out on all kinds of drugs. All kinds of these things, pumping their bodies up. They're out of their minds with their crew cuts and enough body armor to go through the Battle of the Bulge unscathed. And they're picking on us rather than going after the criminals that are destroying the country that they say they love. Hey, Junior, serve and protect.
No, not anymore. They don't. These MRAP vehicles, mine-resistant, ambush-protected, like your local police need these. All right, these guys come back, as Gerald said, from Iraq, Afghanistan, and they're emotionally disturbed, many of them. They build up, look like middle linebackers, they buzz-cut their hair. They're ready to go out and break somebody down anytime, anywhere, and that's the truth. And this is very unfortunate. What's really bizarre, Gerald, and we've got a break here, is that many of them actually, I think that they're Americans, but they're not. They're the enemy of America, and they'll be the last to figure it out. Hold on just a second. We'll come right back. Okay, last year, from what we know, the police in this country killed, I call it executed, over 300 Americans. That's what we know about. Remember the posse comitatus, folks, where the military is not allowed to really take the streets in this country, and certainly not allowed to act against the citizens, the patriot citizens of this country. You know how they got around that? I think you're figuring it out now. They began sending the chiefs of police over to Israel to be trained in crowd suppression and all kinds of things, which with the Israelis deal with the Palestinians. And then they come back here, of course, and set these departments up with middle linebackers as their stock and trade, or these guys that are, shall we say, slightly overweight, and these women who want to be men in many cases. So they got these departments of loons who go out and kill hundreds of Americans every year. And so what have they done? They've militarized the American police departments to the extent now that they don't really need to worry about the posse comitatus anymore, because they've created an army in every city, in every town in this country. These are military people now for all intents and purposes. They've got the equipment, they've got the attitude. Many of them are veterans. They've killed people, some with their bare hands. They come back here, they're on a dozen or so medications. They're mentally deranged, we know that. And we've seen some dash cam videos of some astounding behavior by these people. So there you go. That's how they did it. They're not going to have to put the military in the streets, Gerald. They've got it. They're called police now.
Well, you mentioned about the Posse Comitatus Act. It was repealed under Obama on New Year's Eve 2011 with the National Defense Authorization Act.
That's right.
So that's repealed as well, so they could bring in both.
They can.
And again, that anybody listening, any police, if you happen to listen to this, get off your trip and stop being this tough guy. I'm a close combat practitioner, been for many years. And when I used to work out with the police, these guys, one of the things, by the way, I used to, attackproof.com, John Perkins, one of the things when you work out, you never were allowed to have competition. It's not about competition. It's about finding yourself, and you're not there to try to beat the other guy. But boy, when you used to work out with the cops, and you're going along night, and you had to go slow. Everything had to be slow. So you could feel your way in, not push your way in or speed your way in. And you go in, bam, you hit them, slow strike to the nose. Boom, they'd speed right up, and they'd want to rip you apart. So I learned after working out with these guys, they go berserk.
Hair trigger.
Yeah, because, I'm a guy, I'm a small guy. My thing is I go in fast and then the story. That's it. It's not about, it's not like watching one of these games over here. You go in, you take out the computer, and that's it. And so what I used to do, I'd work out with them, and all I would do was block. I would do is block the whole time.
Frustrate the hell out of them.
I just block, just block nice and slow, because I knew if I hit them, these little boys couldn't take it. They'd speed up and they get tough. One after another. One after another.
Mm-hmm.
And they are what's stopping freedom in America.
Oh,
the founding fathers, you know who these guys would be? These guys would be the guys that would be supporting King George III. They would be the 20% that would be stopping America from freedom ringing. People ask me, why aren't there protests like going on in Italy, like going on in Turkey, like going on in how about Thailand? They're not
Thailand,
killing people. Millions of people out in the streets.
Egypt, Greece, and go on right down the list.
How come they're not here? They're not here because you saw what happened with Occupy Wall Street. You see what happens with the Republican conventions, Democratic conventions. The cops beat the crap out of the people. The cops are the pigs, literally and figuratively, until they get it in their heads that they're one of us and that the people that they're protecting will grind them up and spit them out like garbage.
They're totally expendable, and they'll never figure it out, Gerald.
Exactly.
You're right.
So that's when it's going to change. And by the way, in Italy, with the pitchfork movement, the cops have taken off their helmets, they've taken off their vests, and they're joining the people.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And again,
I'd love to see that here, but and
it can happen here. So any of these guys that have a problem with me, you want to come and talk to me man to man, we can do it. And leave your gun and your badge behind and your bad attitude. And let's talk about freedom and liberty. If you can get that in your head. And no, I don't believe in Obama or Bush. I don't believe in Boner or Pelosi. And if you want to protect them and lose your dignity and self-respect, that's your trip, not mine.
That is.
So anyway, I want to give you a quick rundown what we see happening coming up.
Yeah, please. Yeah, this is important. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, look at the way the year began. The world equity markets are in a slump. Everybody's freaking out about this tapering. And they did it near the Christmas holiday when a lot of people weren't paying attention. The emerging markets, which depend on cheap money, have lost already over 3% since the beginning of the year.
Huh.
They lost 5% last year.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the markets, the Asian markets, the U.S., the European markets, they're all soft. They've been declining more days than up. The tapering is taking a toll. Here's our forecast. We believe, and again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. This is the best we could do from the outside. We believe they're going to do another round of tapering because there's a problem worldwide. Today, for example, the Europeans announced they're going to continue to keep interest rates at record lows, and the Fed said the same thing. But even if they're going to keep interest rates at record lows, real interest rates are going up, and you can see it in the bond prices. So, after they do another round of tapering, which we believe they're going to attempt at the end of January, you're going to see panic hit the markets. And they're going to come out with a new line. They're not going to call it quantitative easing. They'll make up a new name. We got a new chairman, Yellen, but it will be the same thing.
Yeah.
When the new round of tapering comes in, that's when you're going to see gold and oil prices soar. We believe that there's going to be a financial crisis, considering the way things are going now, by the end of the second quarter of this year. And again, you look what's going on in China, the shadow banking system. In the old days, they called them loan sharks. Over 50% of the money being borrowed in China is coming from loan sharks. They're trying to rein it in, and they can't.
Wow.
Yes, of the new money being loaned.
Wow.
And they can't rein it in because they have 1.3 billion people. Mm-hmm. They have a bubble that's ready to burst. You're looking at real estate prices in Shanghai and Beijing going up 10% a month. And they don't know how to slow it down.
They're ridiculous.
And China's biggest problem, by the way, it's not the East China Sea or the South China Sea. It's their 1.3 billion people that they want to keep calm. So they don't know what to do. So the deal is this. Whether it's in Turkey where there's revolutions going and Erdogan, the prime minister, is calling it an interest rate attack. He's blaming it on the interest rate, quote, lobby, because they're raising interest rates and the economies are crashing. In India, in Indonesia, the rupiah, their currencies are all declining. Now figure it out. The currencies are under pressure because of all the hot money that flowed in from the cheap money from the U.S. Now the money's flowing out. To stop the money flows, they're raising interest rates in these emerging markets at a time when their economy is in decline. That is a recipe for disaster.
Sure
you don't raise interest rates when your economy is declining. So we have in front of us a world problem with no solutions.
Sounds like Fukushima. No solutions.
Boy, and again, that's the one that you're reporting on, one of the most out there, and the major media has ignored it totally. It's poisoning the planet. It is one of the worst catastrophes in history, and it keeps going on.
Yeah, there's no solution. There's no technology to resolve the issue. And you're right, the major media, if they cover it at all, they're forced into it, and then they'll go on to something else the next day. They'll do occasionally.
How about the Duck Dynasty?
Oh, there you go.
There you go. But you're doing one of the great jobs in covering it, more so than virtually anybody else. There are a few. But your facts and data and information, and again, I wouldn't be living on the West Coast. And you're going to start seeing the fallout, and I use that word loosely, and you're going to start seeing more and more people pulling away from the coasts as this continuing.
Well, I'm 150 miles inland, thank God, with nothing but mountains between me and the coast. But that marine layer, however far it comes in, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 miles, fog, mist, a lot of that's going to be carrying stuff. The oceans along the shore, of course, with their micro-aerosolized droplets, a lot of that will be contaminated. The waves will wash up on the sand and leave cesium and plutonium and God knows what else behind. The rain will come across the coastal valleys and inland valleys and rain on the croplands. Now, what's happening is many of these storms are being stopped, we think, possibly with intent. There's a big high pressure. It's been up there for 2 months. These storms are being crumbled, shredded, and some pieces are making it up to Canada, and then they're dropping down in the Midwest. That's why Missouri and other areas there are getting very high readings. These storms are going north of Seattle, up into British Columbia, across Canada, and then back down as the jet stream drops down. So there's really nowhere you're safe in this country. There's nowhere. They were finding cesium in the milk of Vermont dairy cattle, Gerald, 2 weeks after Fukushima began to blow up. Boom, 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 boom. That's how quickly. So you got to think you need a HEPA filter for your house. Get N95 masks in case you have a bad day. The government's not going to tell you if you're going to have a bad day. You're going to have to get a Geiger counter and do your own checking. And this is the truth. They're already beginning to lie in California. The California Department of Health is saying there's not going to be any problem from Fukushima radiation over here. Forget it. The Pacific Ocean. You ever pour yourself a black cup of coffee? What happens when you put milk in it? Change the whole color. It completely permeates it. That's what's happened to the Pacific Ocean. The milk is this 1,000 metric tons a day of highly radioactive water being dumped into the ocean from Fukushima Daiichi. For 3 years, ladies and gentlemen, the ocean is completely contaminated. It's dying. That's what we're faced again with. And up against something like that, there are no answers, Gerald. All we can do is stay informed, which is what you do with the TrendsJournal, what I try to do here. And God help us all. It's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy. And
as you point out, there are steps to take in food.
There are things you can do.
And to keep yourself healthy.
Yep. We'll try our best to keep people updated, as you will. Thanks, my friend.
Don't forget to keep eating that sushi.
Oh God, can you believe it?
I don't eat this stuff.
Nothing out of the Pacific Ocean. Nothing.
Nah, I stopped eating fish just about totally. I just
you better. Good for you. All right, talk to you next month, Gerald.
Except a little bacala every now.
So, have one for me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night. All right, that's hour one, Gerald Celente, and we'll be right back with hour two right after this. Right after this. right after this, right after this, right after this, right after this, right after